Wish that you were better. All right, we are officially live. What's up, Jhana?
You made it. Hey, Joel, how are you?
Doing good. Let me just make sure it's working on the phone. I don't think I was able to run the description properly, so I'm gonna have to edit that real quick. Oh no, it looks pretty good. Sweet.
We're up.
Wow, it seems like it's showing captions as well. That's new.
All right.
That's kind of cool. So we'll get captions on this.
Sweet.
All right, let me just go on, make sure I can hear myself.
Sweet.
Seems like we can.
Let's
All
try
right.
today.
Yeah, let me go ahead and grab the link.
What is up, everybody?
Give us 1 second, guys. We want to send an email saying that we're live. I'm going to send this to Damon right now. Where are we at? Cool. All right, guys, we are officially live, and I've got a really special guest today, Jhana Gottlieb. What's up, Jhana?
What's up, guys? Nice to see you all.
Today?
Excellent. Really excellent. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Let me just make sure. Let's see. Cool. It seems like we're live, but I don't know if it's reaching anyone. I feel like the Facebook group has been not doing too hot. Oh no. It seems like we got some people on. Sweet.
Perfect.
All right. So with that in mind, guys, for anyone that's like, yo, guys, you're late. First things first, this is free. So we don't have to be here. We don't have to be doing this. My computer actually heated up. I spilled water on it like a month ago. And what happened was sometimes now it just randomly turns on, and it was in my backpack. So it was literally about to explode. So I had to wait like 10 minutes for it to cool down. Even now, if I touch it, it's still really hot. But we are good, guys. We are live. Like I said, this is free. This is here to help you guys. If you're complaining, get out of our group. We don't want you here. We brought in an executive assistant to help the guys be a little bit more punctual. So hopefully you'll be seeing the effects of that over the next few weeks. We're working on it. Yep, we do have an executive assistant, although she can't help with computers overheating. That is something that just happens sometimes. With that in mind, if you're tuning in live, if you're here with us today, super excited to have you guys. Drop a 1 below in the chat. Show some love. I would love to hear from you guys, everyone that's live with us right now. And with that in mind, Jhana, do you want to introduce yourself and maybe tell us your story? And I know that's a big question, but we have plenty of time here today. We've got 40 minutes. So if you want to dive in,
let's do it.
The floor is yours.
Cool. What's up, guys? My name is Jhana. Joel and I have been working around each other for quite a while at this point, almost 4 years. I was in the background on the sidelines with Joel and Marcos when they were first building out Atlas, the agency. And I joined the Atlas team officially as their COO about 1.5 years ago, and was the COO at Atlas for a little over a year, and then ended up moving over to...
Do you want to talk about how that happened? I know there was some crazy moments.
Yeah.
Well, we went through a crazy fire, remember?
Yep. So essentially, you guys had to let go of 2 account managers, which were also all of your account managers. And then a month later, the business manager crashed. So it was like 2 major things, one right after the other. When the account manager stepped out, I had been I was familiar with the business. I knew how it all worked. And so I stepped in. It was just going to be temporary, like 30 days to kind of help with the transition, get new account managers in place, get them hired and trained. And then I got in there and I was like, whoa, this is a mess. And so I just started cleaning things up. I remember I cleaned up all your guys' billing to start, and just one by one, every system, like there was just so much room for opportunity and optimization there, that I just kind of ended up staying on and stepping very quickly out of the account manager role into more of an ops manager role, and then quickly to COO from there. And so it was there was obviously a lot to do with the ads manager having crashed. We were growing the team pretty aggressively, and there was just a lot of room for marginal gains and to optimize from a operations perspective. And similar kind of thing happening now, I think, over at 7FA, of just like, all right, we've grown to a point where things are starting to break. Who do we know who can come in and build out some systems? And so that's what we're doing now.
So guys, I feel like you didn't do enough justice to what you were able to help us with. Essentially, guys, back like 2 years ago, we had to let go of both of our account managers pretty much overnight.
Yep.
So imagine how we had over 100 clients at that point. And within a week, we had to let go of the 2 account managers that were running everything for us in our agency. And everything in regards to client management, talking to clients, client communication. And I had known Jhana for months at that point, and I knew she was super talented. So I said, Jhana, if I'm going to let go of these 2 people, you have to help us. And when Jhana came on board, she ended up helping us so much and really identifying all the holes in our ship that were dragging us down underwater. And she helped us really patch up those holes and build some systems that were 10 times better than the ones that I have, or the ones that I created. And a lot of you guys see me as like the systems guy. A lot of you guys see me as like the automations, processes, SOPs guy. And I did create a lot of our systems. But what you have to realize, guys, is that I created version 1, 2, and 3. Jhana took those versions and 10x them and created version 30 that performed so much more and helped us out in a much more efficient manner. And it was so valuable to the point that I was asking Jhana to step in and be the COO. So after that, she helped us with Atlas for like a year and a half. And I was just begging you to come join 7FA and help us with our coaching program. And I think like I started asking you to join us like a year ago.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It was a long close.
But anyways, that's from my perspective, Jhana, like you're one of the most talented people I've ever met. You're also the reason that I've been able to fire myself. And whenever anyone's like, yo, Joel, how do you fire yourself? What systems, SOPs, processes? They don't really see is that it comes down to putting such a strong operator and systems thinker that can take your vision and your company and actually integrate it in the day-to-day.
And that's actually the perfect word. Yeah. It's the perfect word to use, is integrate. For anybody who's read the book Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman, he talks about this like really strong dynamic, the strong duo, the strongest duo that you can put in place at the leadership level in your company, which is the visionary and the integrator. And for lots of you who are the original entrepreneur, the original founder, a lot of you guys tend to fit the visionary type. You're very creative thinkers. You can see very far-reaching ideas. You're just this like creative powerhouse. You're coming up with new offers and new ideas and new products and new strategies all the time. It's really where you thrive. And at the beginning of a company, when you don't have the capacity to build out a team, you also have to play that kind of operator integrator role because you just don't have any other option. But it's not your highest skill set. And it honestly is limiting in what you're able to create. And when you have the opportunity to then pair up with an integrator, the integrator's role is to take the vision of the visionary and actually turn it into an executable reality. And combining those 2 skill sets, the visionary needs the integrator. The integrator also needs the visionary, right? But that is really a key turning point for a lot of companies because it's truly what allows the visionary to step fully into their zone of genius and also allows the foundation of a company to get built out in a way that is truly sustainable and built for the long run.
So, Jhana, let's jump right in.
Yep.
We talked a little bit about who you are. Is there anything else that people should know about you? No? Okay. COO. Everyone wants to know, Joel, how did you fire yourself from your agency? How are you starting to fire yourself from your coaching program? And I want to put a quick disclaimer. I'm not firing myself to the point where I don't work. it's just really evolving from having to do the day-to-day because you have to and you don't have a choice, to being empowered to the point where you can focus on bigger picture things like the vision, innovation, how to attract strategic partners, how to build a really strong brand, really higher level stuff. So it's not
super high value add, right? Like that is actually super necessary and important work that often gets put to the side, or it's like what people will do like way after the workday when they can fit in a couple of hours late at night, right? Like it's just taking what your natural skill set is and moving it to the forefront of what you spend your day to day on, instead of what is not your natural skill set and what you don't enjoy doing, which is day-to-day running of the company, operations, systems, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's not like Jhana came in here and said, Joel, you don't have to work ever again. I think it was, and the conversation is much more so, get out of doing the day-to-day tasks like talking to clients, like having to tweak the ads, like having to build the funnel, like dealing with fires that come up, and instead focus on bigger picture things like strategic partnerships, innovation. How do I attract really talented people? How do I build a better network for our company? So that's Jhana's role. It's really helping everyone level up and really improving all the systems as the COO, and then ultimately helping the leadership team step into bigger and bigger level things. And everyone's always like, Joel, how did you fire yourself? How do you automate your agency? You need a Jhana. That's what we always say. And I know it's kind of like an unfair answer because it doesn't really help anyone. But what you really need is Jhana. Like that, if you really want to fire yourself, you need to find a Jhana to work with you in your agency. So with that in mind, I know I'm talking a lot. I'm going to pass the floor to you. When and how should you hire a COO? And what's the difference between a COO and an operations manager? And I know you could talk about this for like 2 hours, but if you had to give people like a 5-minute overview, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say, guys, that when you are hitting the point of growth where your systems are really actively breaking, and you'll know it when you see it, right? Information starts to get dropped. Clients start to not get sent live when they were supposed to. Ads don't get turned off. Billing gets messed up, right? When these sorts of holes in the bucket or holes in the ship really start to show, and you can see that you're really leaking water, that is where operations steps in. And the goal of, like the visionary sales, marketing, the CEO is to drive revenue higher, the top line, right? The goal of operations is to keep costs as low as possible and widen the profit margin from the bottom, if that makes sense. And so when you get to the point where you see you are genuinely leaking money, like Joel, when I came into Atlas and I looked at your guys' billing system, I'm pretty sure like 30% of your transactions were wrong somehow, right? Like you were losing out on like 30% of revenue. Like when that kind of stuff starts to happen, that's where an operational skill set and mindset really starts to save costs in a very significant way. As far as like, do I bring in a COO? Do I bring in an ops manager? I think to start, that person will largely be doing both if you only have capacity for one operational thinker on your team. But if I had to choose between one or the other, given the agency model, I would actually recommend going with an ops manager first. They can call themselves COO, whatever, that can be part of the negotiation is the title. But realistically, where their focus needs to be at the beginning is in building out a structural foundation and infrastructure for the day-to-day operation of your company so that it can scale without breaking, right? That's things like billing, things like tweaking SOPs, things like getting the right people into the right roles, all of the what's called marginal gain, room for micro optimizations throughout the company. That's the first thing that will need to get cleaned up because that wasn't your highest skill set. That's not what you, the entrepreneur and visionary, were focusing on when you grew the company up till that point. And then once you have that sort of foundational infrastructure in place, then that person can really start elevating and working on higher level tasks. How do we rebuild our hiring structure? How do we, execute and scale these strategic partnerships that the CEO is now bringing in? How do we, right, like higher level thinking? How do we empower a class of middle managers to take over the day-to-day operations? But if you jump straight into that executive level role, the reality is actually you're missing out on a lot of lost revenue that is leaking out of the holes in the bucket. And so I would recommend plugging those holes first.
So what
and then the water
mark
level can
would you
rise.
say? Like if I had to give someone like a guess in terms of, or like a guesstimate on when should you hire your Jhana Gottlieb, or at least your operations manager, maybe not a COO, but an operations manager. Is it like 50K a month, 70K a month, 100K a month?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Joel, I think that you and Marcos waited a long time. You probably could have used an operator in the company a little bit earlier. If I was to set the ideal trajectory for an agency, I would say somewhere between probably the 50 to 75K mark.
Okay, so guys, that's a really good point. A lot of you want to automate your agency, but first, and here's a really valuable golden nugget. If you're watching us live, definitely write this down. It's super, super, super valuable. Before you automate and before you remove yourself and before you fire yourself from the day-to-day, you have to create enough margin to do so.
Yeah.
So if you do it too early on and you don't have the margin to be able to hire an operations manager, what's going to happen is you are going to bring someone on, and if you don't have the cash or the capital, you're going to start bleeding, and you're also not going to have enough operational complexity to really leverage their strengths and skill sets on. So before anyone that's watching right now hires a COO or an operations manager, first, you need to have enough margin in your business. And the only way to have enough margin is to have more revenue. So I'd say, based on Jhana's estimate, at least at 50K a month. So before anyone here is thinking about automating their agency and putting in a CO or operations manager, you need to be on average at least at 50K a month.
I would also add this, Joel, which is that people bring on an operations manager and they're like, great, now my costs will go down, so my profit should increase, right? Scale is expensive. Sustainability, building a company that can last, is expensive. And so a lot of people want to bring in an operations manager in order to increase their profit margin. That's the wrong way to think about it. Yes, the role of operations is to keep costs low and should be impacting the margin in that way. But the reality is that if your person's any good, they're going to be investing in additional infrastructure, which is expensive, more systems, right? More automations, more teammates, that kind of thing. And so you can expect your profit margin to decrease over the course of that process. It doesn't mean that the ops person isn't doing their job. It means that they're building out a company that can actually be resilient and can last for a long time. So that's, I guess, would be the other thing, is like, depends on what your goals are, right? If your goal is to just make a ton of money and then get out and the whole thing's gonna like break, don't hire an operations manager because they'll cut into your margins, right? But if you want to build something that lasts, if you want to build something that you can truly step out of and have it continue to grow and thrive, if you have any sort of a long-term goal or long-term ambition, then you have to be willing to take that reduction in margins, because there's no way to run a company sustainably at a 50, 60, 70% profit margin. It's just not possible.
Guys, something huge, I don't know if you picked up on it, that Jhana just said, scale and sustainability is expensive.
Yeah.
You can't automate something for free. And I promise you guys, you can have the greatest apps in the world, you can have the greatest SOPs in the world, you can have the greatest automations in the world. If you don't have people and someone to help in the day-to-day operations of those people, you're not going to fully ever automate your business.
Yep.
The really only true way to fully automate your business is not through more zaps. It's through people, and then having someone talented like Jhana be able to manage the day-to-day operations of those people. And to be able to do that sustainably and at scale, like you said, because it's expensive, you need margin.
Yep.
So I think, as a quick heads up, I know we're having this masterclass, or at least this interview with you, and everyone is super excited. I even had someone message me this morning that, like, someone that I'm here with in Puerto Rico right now, and he was like, dude, I'm going to go back and find Wi-Fi to watch this live. And everyone wants to find their Jhana and to automate it. But keep in mind, you have to also be humble to where you're at in the process. So if you don't have the margins to be able to hire a Jhana Gottlieb, you shouldn't hire Jhana Gottlieb.
That's a great point.
Before you automate, you should think about increasing your margins first and getting more clients.
I would also say a lot of people want to bring in an ops manager preemptively because genuinely they just don't like operations, right? And that is just a skill set that they want to delegate out really, really quickly. Now, if you're terrible at operations, like completely incapable of building an SOP that works, all right, maybe that's something that needs to be delegated. But for most entrepreneurs, they want to do it just because they don't want to be bothered with that side of the company. And that's the wrong way to think about it. Like, Jill, you built out, we had SOPs for every major process. We had a payment system. We had these sort of foundational structures in place well before I came in. I just made them better, right? I just optimized them and made them scalable. But that foundational infrastructure, like, you shouldn't wait to build your first SOP until you have an ops manager in place, right? Then you will never build your company to the point that you could even afford to have an ops manager sustainably. And so you need that initial infrastructure just to help your company get to the point where really optimizing the operation side even makes sense.
I love it. I think, Jhana, I don't know if you'd be down to do this. This is kind of a random thing, but for anyone that stays on till the end, would you be down to give away a 15-minute coaching call with you?
Ooh, 15 minutes?
Yeah, keep it nice and quick. It's like,
right.
like they would hop on with you for 15 minutes. You'll ask them, hey, what's the number one operational bottleneck right now? And then you can drop some
I'm
value.
actually down. No, that'd be fun. Yeah, I'd love to get to know more people in this group. So actually, let's do that.
Okay, guys, if you want to win a 15-minute one-on-one with Jhana, my COO, or our COO for 7-Figure Agency and for Atlas Digital last year, so that she can help you diagnose the number one operational bottleneck in your business and then help you build some solutions around it. Drop a 1 below, but we need to get at least like 20 ones. At least I want to hear from at least 20 ones for this to even happen. If we don't get enough ones, we're not going to do it.
It's off.
If you're watching us live right now and you want to win a 15-minute coaching call with the COO that helped us run our multi-7-figure agency and our close to 8-figure coaching program and really helped me fire myself from the day-to-day, drop some ones. Jhana did not know that we were going to do this. I just came up with the idea right now on the spot. And if we get enough ones, we'll do it. And I'll pick someone at the end.
I love it.
We got Evan, Carlos, Michael, Ja, Samantha. What's up, Samantha? Evan, Daniel, Yanko, George. Drop some ones below if we get enough traction.
We don't have to do it, guys. That's not interesting to you. We don't have to.
Oh no, we're getting ones. I'm just trying to see who else wants to enter to win. Matt, what's up, Matt? It's been a while. Jason, if you guys want to win a 15-minute one-on-one with Jhana, drop a 1 below and wait till the end, and we'll pick the winner. If you're not here at the end and I pick your name, you're not going to win. Cool. Next up, so we talked a little bit about the role, how it works, when you should bring an operations manager or a COO. My next question for you, Jhana, is day one, an operation manager or a COO comes on board. What do they do? And beyond day one, like, what is the role? What does that even look like?
It's a good question. I would say that the first 30 days can tell you a lot about that person, especially if you are bringing them in specifically because they already have that skill set and they're bringing that skill set to the table. If you have somebody who comes in and from day one just jumps in and says, okay, this and this and this and this, and I see something over here and I see something over here, and they start diving in, that's the wrong person. Because truly operational thinkers have to understand the system at all of its levels to really understand what buttons and what levers to push. If you remember when I first got into
Jhana, that is insanely valuable. Can you just say that one more time?
For sure.
Just slow it down, because this will help a lot of you guys not make the wrong hiring choice.
Yeah.
Just with this one little insight. Could you drop it again?
Here's the thing, guys. Yeah. The operational skill set, right, is essentially just complex systems analysis. It's the ability to take a look at a system, take a look at a pattern, see where it's bottlenecked, see where it's falling apart, see how things link together, and at scale, see how something might affect the 3-foot view and the 30,000-foot view. It's not, hey, I see a problem, I'm going to go fix it, right? The fixing of it is actually the easiest part of the job. The seeing how that problem is actually just a symptom of this other problem over here. And so if I have limited amounts of time, I got to fix the root problem. That's what you want in an operational thinker, in an operational role. So when I first got to the 7FA team, I didn't touch anything for 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks, I was interviewing students. I was interviewing the team. I had a one-on-one with every single person on the team. I was, observing meetings. I was looking at the Slack channel. I was looking through the Facebook community. I was building an understanding of the system so that when I took my first step, it was the most efficient, the most effective, the highest value for the least amount of effort, right? And I could actually build, I could actually understand where the work needed to be done, right? My nice to have list is still to this day like 100 items long. There's about 100 things I would love to do to make 7FA slightly more efficient, but my need to have list is like 5 items long. And they're the most important things that need to be done. And so when you are evaluating the strength of your operator, when you bring them in, you're not looking for somebody to just put out fires. You're looking for somebody who can create long-lasting structural change. And that's actually a different skill set.
Wow. So a big red flag, guys, if you hire an operations manager or a COO and day one, they're already looking to fix things, that goes to show that they don't really know how to identify the right problem. And therefore, they don't know how to propose the long-term lasting solution. So the role, as I'm hearing you, Jhana, is first things first, you have to be like an incredible problem identifier, or at least like you need to be able to actually get data and then identify the root cause, not the higher level surface issue.
Yeah, you have to be a diagnostic.
Love it. So ultimately, guys, if you're hiring someone and they come in and they're like, oh, I'm going to already change this day one, it's the wrong person.
Yeah.
That's true. I didn't even think about it, Jhana.
The first 2 weeks, they wouldn't know.
Guys, yeah, I guess that's true. I didn't even think about that. But when you joined 7FA, the first 2 weeks, you didn't really do anything, but you were just trying to identify where the real root issue was. And it's fascinating because I thought it was like, we got to fix this little tech thing. And you were like, no, Joel, we have to hire like 4 people that are missing on this team.
Right.
And you were like, yo, Joel, what you don't see is that the root issue is that our team is maxed out. So then therefore they can't actually work on these surface level problems that keep coming up. So instead we solve the real problem by building a better structure and hiring more people.
Think about it this way, guys, right? If your ops manager is just a firefighter, they see a problem, they fix it. They see a problem, they fix it. And they're just jumping from surface level problem to surface level problem. Those surface level problems are never going to stop, right? That's just part of business. And especially it's an indication of underlying structural issues. And so if your ops manager is just a firefighter, that means that their focus is not on being a fire preventer and actually just making the house more fire resistant and more secure, right? And that's really in the long run where the actual gains of having an operator is that you are able to scale out for the long run. You are able to automate and empower the operation to your team. And without that, there's just going to be a million fires, and the fires are only going to keep getting bigger, and they're only going to keep getting more complex as your company scales, and it will continue to drag you back in and back in and back in into the day-to-day, and you'll need to hire more people to cover more fires because the root cause of those fires has not been addressed.
I freaking love that. I think that's super, super, super valuable. So I think we've talked a lot about when to hire one, what to look for. So let me just go back to the question I just asked. What would their actual role look like in the day-to-day? Then also, like, what are some of the systems and SOPs, and like, what would they be in charge of?
Yeah. So I think that this is really where the distinction between the ops manager and the COO is really made very clear and distinct. If you're hiring an ops manager first, and by the way, guys, again, regardless of what you call them, like I called myself COO at Atlas. For the first 3 months, looking back, the first 3 months I was an ops manager because that is where the need was in the company. That's where the highest value was in the company. And so as ops manager, the role there is to, again, look at marginal gain. It's to be on the ground level with your team, experiencing what they're experiencing, building out that system, and figuring out how to close the gaps in the ship. So as far as what that looks like on a day-to-day, that's sitting in meetings, right, with the respective heads of departments or roles, right, your top account manager, your top salesperson. It's optimizing SOPs. It's building out new systems. So a really common thing that people have to do right around that stage of growth is like bring in some sort of CRM or start using something like Monday.com to manage all of their keeping the team accountable to shifting behavior. That's a really hard one because your team is used to, up until that moment, working in a pretty chaotic, disorganized environment. In order for systems to work, people need to buy in and use them. And so a big role of the ops manager is also accountability over behavior and making it very clear what the new expectations are around how to use these systems and why we're using these systems and why these systems are built out this way and not this way, right? And that's the operational manager role. They're looking for what's called just marginal gains, which means marginal gains. The COO role is about macro gains, right? And the COO's role very directly is to take the vision of the CEO and make it a reality. And so the COO is much more future looking. They are saying, okay, where is this company trying to go? And what is the infrastructure that maybe we don't need now, but we're going to need 6 months from now? And it's going to take about 6 months to build, right? Who are the people on the team that we need to bring in? What are the bottlenecks going to be 9 months from now that I need to get in front of today? And so the COO is working on much larger projects, much larger visionary execution. And their job is to live simultaneously in the present and in the future. The ops manager is squarely in the present. How do I fix what is happening now, right? The COO has to live in the future and say, okay, how do I build for what's coming?
So it seems like COO is much more aligned with the leadership team.
Yes.
And it's much more strategy, whereas the operations manager is much more doing.
Yeah. And I think, again, why I advise that agency owners start with an ops manager is because there's a lot of cleanup and a lot of value to be added by plugging the holes in the ship. That is where the most amount of need is. It's useless to even be thinking about the long term if half your revenue is just going out the other side because of operational gaps, right? That leakage will only grow bigger as your company does. So you have to plug the hole first. Ops manager, I would always recommend first, and then COO. That either that person can ascend to the COO role if they have that kind of ability to future pace, or you bring in a COO role. But at that stage, then it actually makes sense to execute on a larger vision because now you have the underlying infrastructure in place that can support a larger vision.
So what do you say are some of the biggest projects you worked on in the agency?
Definitely the billing system was a big one.
Which one?
I would say like client billing.
Okay, so cleaning up client billing.
Yeah, cleaning up client billing, systemizing that so that like client billing was all over the place. I would say redesigning the account manager role. We were treating our account managers more as customer service, and we had to really elevate them into a like customer coach role. And so that there was a lot of training involved in that. There was a big transformation that happened there. Rebuilding the hiring process was a major one, making sure that we had a way of reliably hiring the right people. And implicit in that project was building out the core values and vision so that we could hire against that as a tool. And we knew that we were hiring the right people for where we wanted the company to go. So a big part of my job was moving people around in the company, getting people into the right roles, getting people into where they're in their zone of genius, and then plugging any gaps with a revamped hiring process. That was another big one.
It seems like the biggest things that the operations manager works on are the things that most entrepreneurs don't want to work on.
Yeah.
And I don't say that in a bad way, but I think most entrepreneurs, everyone watching here, like loves sales, loves marketing, loves client results.
Yep.
Let me figure out the new sales demo presentation that's going to convert. Let me come up with a new offer. Let me tweak my client ads. All those things. And I think the operations manager definitely can help clean up some of the systems around that. But I think
Yes.
where the operations manager really, really thrives is in doing operations, which are all the things that are required to run a business smoothly that most people aren't thinking about, like billing, like core values, like what was the other one you mentioned? Hiring. Extremely powerful, right? Being able to have a way to hire people and filter people out and filter people in, managing the team, all the things that need to happen to run a business, but most of the time get forgotten in the shadows of sales, marketing, client results.
Right.
So,
and here's the thing, right? Sales and marketing, not my skill set. Pretty terrible salesperson. I do not know how to use Facebook Business Manager, right? I don't know anything about that. I don't need to know anything about that. The reality is, like, Joel, your highest value in Atlas was coming up with new offers, new products, new mechanisms for optimizing client ads and client results, right? But the way that you were doing it was, okay, one off over here and one off over here, and I'll just take a look at these 10 clients because I have some extra time today. And so while it was brilliant work and really important, innovative work, it wasn't scalable. So I would say another big role of the ops manager in allowing the entrepreneur to step out of the day-to-day is also filling a gap in communication and empowering to the team. So that now, instead of Joel having to personally go in and tweak every single ad, he could come up with one genius ad per month. And now there's a system in place where that ad gets rolled out to the clients that are in trouble because our ads managers have the right optimization SOPs in place and they know when to plug in a new idea versus try an old strategy, right? And so it actually ends up scaling your guys' impact because your innovations have now been leveraged through the systems that somebody else has built, right? And you're actually able to do your best work, which is that creative process and that zone of genius, but actually roll it out to clients at scale, roll it out to your team at scale, and do it in such a way where your team is actually empowered to run the company without your direct oversight, without you directly stepping in to correct them, right? I think that transition of stepping out of being really a manager, which is what you are when you start your agency, and really stepping into a leadership role, that's another key transition that an operations manager or COO can really help with.
I think, I don't know if I got cut off there, but I think one of the other major shifts, Jhana, that you haven't touched on so much, where I think an operations manager would help many agency owners, is cleaning up their tracking. Could you talk a little, and I don't know if you know this, but we're going to be giving away our agency KPI list to anyone that was on live right now. So guys, if you're watching live and you wait till the end, we're also going to be giving away our agency's KPI list to show you exactly what you need to be tracking in your day-to-day. But with that in mind, let's say that you were an operations manager, you go to join an agency and you realize, oh my God, they don't have any data tracking. What would you recommend to those people?
Yeah. Guys, to be honest, data often can fall under the scope of operations. That is something I would recommend building out as quickly as possible alongside those initial sets of SOPs. Because the reason being that data takes a long time to be actionable. It takes a long time to aggregate and to collect enough that you can actually start identifying patterns. And so you guys, Joel and Marcos, they had simple KPI going for a year before I stepped in, and then I was able to help them actually take tangible action on that data. But we had a year's worth of data to look at and identify patterns from. And so I would not wait for an ops manager to even start tracking your basic list of KPIs like the one that Joel is going to give you guys. But definitely what an ops manager, again, I think data is just a really valuable skill set for anybody in the startup game, for any entrepreneur or person who wants to be the leader of a company and make decisions. I think data is just an important tool to do that. I wouldn't confine that to the role of operations, but certainly I would say that in Atlas specifically, that is something that we really started to heavily lean into once I joined the team.
I think that is one of the greatest value adds of bringing in an operations manager, is that everyone watching this would be able to finally see their numbers and be able to make data-driven decisions. Like, for example, with 7FA, we scaled very, very quickly. And then it was happening so fast that unlike the agency where we were tracking everything, we just didn't even put in the systems in place to track because things were moving and moving and moving and moving. And we're like, we don't even have time to track everything. But then once the ad accounts went down, which they did, and that's happened to everyone, and we finally had the time to start tracking, like I know for a fact that this is going to set us up for major success in the long run. So with that in mind, Jhana, I know we've got like 5 minutes left. What would you say are some other golden nuggets you could throw out there for people to walk away with as far as anything we've talked about? Operations, automating, firing yourself.
One thing, and Joel, you actually said this at our inner circle event in Mexico, and it's really stuck with me, which is that like everybody wants to fire themselves from their agency, right? But firing yourself does not mean building the world's most perfect SOP, right? Firing yourself actually means building a resilient, adaptable, and empowered team. And operations is a key component to that. The reality is that the world changes too quickly. You know, our industry in particular changes super, super fast. And SOPs, while a super important tool, are not flexible enough. They don't adapt on their own. They don't evolve on their own, right? And so really, when you're thinking about the long term of how do I build out my agency so I can step away from it, it's not investing in you just building out the most complex flow chart of if this, then that statements that anybody's ever seen, right? It's about bringing in the right integrator thinkers, the right operational thinkers, and empowering your team with critical thinking skills so that they can adapt in real time. Because otherwise, they will always be sending those questions back up the chain of command to you. You will always be getting dragged back into the day-to-day, and you'll never achieve truly that goal of stepping out.
Yeah, I think that's genius. I think everyone watching this is thinking, or maybe not everyone, but a lot of agency owners out there are thinking about automating themselves and removing themselves from the day-to-day in such a short-term format or process. They're like, oh, how do I build a Zap? But the problem is the Zap is not going to work under every situation, and it's definitely not going to work long-term in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, because things are always extremely dynamic. However, what is something that you can bring into your team that is extremely dynamic and can adapt with all the changes? People.
Right.
If the Zap, I'll put it to you like this. Let's say you build the greatest automation for onboarding of all time, all these apps. And then for some reason you change your ads or you change your offer. Now you have to go rebuild everything.
Exactly.
Well, if you're the one that has to go rebuild it, then you haven't fired yourself. But if you hired an amazing tech genius or media buyer or operations manager that can edit and tweak that onboarding system with all the Zaps in it to align with the new process, you don't have to be the one doing it. Then you have automated the process.
Automated it, right? Yeah.
And guys, this is how, like, look at the biggest companies in the world. This is how it works. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's not like you're using other people. It's just that's how it works. That's how business works. And that's how you remove yourself from the day-to-day. And again, I don't think anyone here should just be doing nothing. I think if anything, it should be so that you can level up and evolve from an entrepreneurial employee where you're doing everything to a CEO where you're really thinking about the vision, the offers, innovation. How do we take care of our customers and our clients at a higher level? And all of the above.
Yeah.
I do want to throw a quick disclaimer, guys. Someone mentioned, this is great, but at the beginning, you do need to know the nitty gritty. Like we mentioned at the beginning, most of you guys are going to be ready to automate your agency and bring in an operations manager or a COO until you have enough margin where it makes sense. So we're not telling you to go start an agency.
Go out there and do it right now. Yeah.
So keep that context in mind, guys. It's not for right now if you're not at that level. It's for later on, because everyone wants to know how I removed myself. So we still got to tell you guys how we did it, even though it might not be the right time.
And it's also something that you can build towards, right? Like knowing where you're going, knowing that you will bring that person in, and here's what that relative timeline looks like. That allows you to start building out that network. Somebody asked, where do you find a Jhana? start looking for them, right? It's never too early to start looking for them, asking your network, trying to spot that systems analysis skill set in somebody, right? And so it's never not useful to have this information and know that this is where you're going to grow to, even if that's not where you are yet. Joel, I do have a hard cutoff. Can you let me know who wins the 15 minutes and I'll connect with them and make sure that they get it?
Yep, guys, here's how we're going to do this. If you want to win, and this is the last thing for today. First of all, Jhana, thank you so much for being on. You can actually sign off and I'll take it away.
Hell yeah.
So I'm going to just remove
thank you so much.
Guys, drop some ones for Jhana. Show some love. If you stay till the end, show some love. Drop some ones below in the comments. And what I want to do to wrap things up is let you guys know how you can win a 15-minute one-on-one with Jhana and how you can get access to our free agency KPI list so that you know exactly what to start tracking. So with that in mind, do you guys want to win a 15-minute one-on-one with Jhana so that she can come in and show you exactly which is the number one bottleneck you're facing operationally and then help you create solutions to solve that bottleneck? If so, what I'm going to be doing right now, I'm going to be creating a new post in Marketing Agency Secrets saying who wants to get access to the free agency KPI list. The first 10 people to comment on it, will be entered to win a one-on-one with Jhana. And what I'm going to do is just pick one of the names on there and post it in the group announcing the winner. So as soon as I'm done with this live, I'm going to go make that post, letting people know that if you want to get the free agency KPI list, to go comment. The first 10 people to comment will be entered to win a free one-on-one with Jhana for 15 minutes. We'll go from there. So with that in mind, love you guys. Hope you found value in that. If you hear some roosters, it's because I'm in Puerto Rico hanging out. And I wanted to get out of Denver. It's freezing. It's cold. I'm here for the next few weeks. And with that in mind, much love. Appreciate you guys. And we'll see you next week.